working? Are you working, babe? Ah, yes, you are.
Yay!
I'm so happy.
This is a little loud.
Yes, it's very sensitive. So,
Yeah. I'm gonna turn down our headphones.
Yes.
Sorry.
Sorry about that. I think you might have messed with mine, but it's fine.
I'm gonna put them all up and then
it's okay.
down here.
But
Okay.
yes, welcome back to What Are You? The best podcast in the Midwest.
Best in the Midwest.
We got everything fixed. Super happy.
Super happy.
But yes, we have our guests today.
Yes. We have M. Alves
Woo!
here. M works over at the Phoenix Center at CU Denver. And so M, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Yeah. So my name is M. I use they, them pronouns, and I am the Violence Prevention Education Coordinator at the Phoenix Center, which is your tri-institutional support and education office when it comes to interpersonal violence, which is relationship violence, sexual violence, and stalking.
Yes. And we are soupy, Jesus, soupy happy to have M here. Our topic for today is hypersexualization of mixed people. I know that we've had an episode in the past that talked about like exoticism, so this kind of goes into it because, I mean, being exoticized also can be hypersexualized as well.
Yeah.
So we're just going to talk about like our experiences, and we'll also talk about their experiences of being a living person as well as working over at the Phoenix Center. Of course, anything that's not confidential, we also want you to keep your job.
Yes.
So,
Appreciate it.
yeah. So Ray, I'm honestly curious about like your experience. We talk a lot about like hypersexualization of like women especially, so I kind of want to hear like either your experiences or things you've seen of like either mixed men or men identifying people.
Yes. For like mixed men, it more so goes into other people's perspective of putting them into either box.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm a Latino, Afro-Latino, so there are sometimes that, you know, I'll get compliments more focused on being African American and then more focused on being Latino. I haven't gotten this, but one of my, you know, friends have, where they were like almost stalked at a party about like, you know, trying to hook up with them and saying, no, I just want to dance, like that's all I want to do. And it got to the point where he felt uncomfortable that he had to leave, and the girl like just, you know, kind of did the whole Netflix you thing and just stalked his like social media and stuff like that, to the point where he was like, what is going on? Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, we're clearly not getting the picture here. And so she was just like, oh, I just want you. It's like, do you want me or do you want my race? Like that's, and like, you know, once he dropped that question, she was like, oh, well, you know, I didn't mean it like that. He's like, well, you did, because I clearly said no, and I didn't want this interaction to happen, and you found me like through my social, like, you're getting a lot, so it's definitely kind of odd, but definitely like the whole snow bunny, like, mentality, I guess, is just like the specificity, or the preference solely on black men, and, you know, I get a preference, that's fine, but there's a difference between a preference and like an obsession solely with the anatomy of black men, and like kind of like going to the whole like, I'm just gonna strip out the emotional piece and just solely get my physical satisfaction.
Yeah. And I think my problem with that I've seen with other people is that I've seen like white girls use like going after black men as a rebellion towards like family and things like that. And I'm like, I'm not the person to cause a fight in your family just because of my race.
Yeah, like don't use it as a tool.
Yeah.
Because that's just, there's a lot of, you know, ums and ah, you know, like it's not a good, like the relationship, yes, but if you're doing it solely for your own gain, then that's when I'll be like, okay, sit down, Brittany. Like, or like, someone, not a Carolina, Brittany, but you know, that's just the frustration that I'll have towards people who have a preference and or an obsession that kind of causes them to have some kind of disruption between like a relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And Chelsea, we've like talked a little bit about like fetishization, especially of like Asian women
Oh, yeah.
and what that looks
Most
like. And so like, do you have any experience? Yep, you're nodding your head. You're like,
Because I get mistaken for Hispanic or like a Latino woman. But I always straight up tell them like, no, I do have like maybe distinct features that could look like that, but I'm straight up Asian. And then comments too like, oh, even better.
Yeah, you know, like,
It's like, are we comparing? Like,
Yeah.
we shouldn't even be comparing ethnic women to each other. And just,
right.
to be honest, like,
It's just gross.
why are you
Yeah.
objectifying my body and my certain features
Features.
on my face, my body in general? And it's usually coming from men, of course.
Yeah.
But I feel like Asian women, based off of like observing throughout the whole years, it's mostly coming from black men who have objectified Asian women bodies, yeah. So not necessarily I've seen it. This is from my experiences, so I'm not speaking for the entirety of all Asian women. But then after black men would be like Mexican men, then white men. But it still continues today. I think it's more of like, I guess the older you get and the spaces that you're in. Oh, sorry.
No.
Especially like most of my time I'm at work, I'm at school, and if I'm going grocery shopping, yeah, those things happen too. But I get tired of it. It's like, it's
Yeah.
like- and as to some point, you're just like, there are moments where you just like shrug it off, and then there are moments like you gotta speak up and like end this objectifying Asian woman, right? But then also speaking up for others too who are being objectified
Yeah.
in terms of like black women, Mexicans, right? I keep saying Mexican when I'm supposed to say Latino.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
But yeah, I was gonna say something about you. I mean, like even I don't know, like this. Yes, the term preference. I have trouble like grappling on that term.
Or like a type.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because then it's like picking and choosing. One is
Yeah.
better than the other, and it's like, where did this term preference?
Become its own
Like-
thing. Like, when do
Yeah.
you, as an individual, like this particular group of people, and
Yeah.
like, you know, that's
Was it a young age?
Yeah.
Did you watch?
a whole like counselor.
Yeah,
That's like a
and that's why
session.
Ray is here,
Yeah.
so we can dig deep into that
Yeah,
family.
you know. But yeah, at the same time, I don't want to like force them to like anyone they don't like. But yeah, I do hear a lot of times where they're like, "Oh, that's just my type. That's the girl I like." Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "All right, cool." As
And
long
where
as
is that coming
yeah, it's like where is
Yeah.
that coming from? Like what? Like Freudian, like
Yeah.
what did your mother do, and you know stuff like that. It's just like Freud did not talk like that at all. But you know, it's just there's always like a deep reasoning behind it, definitely. And you know, my take is like as long as it's benefiting you and the other partner, you know, fine, great. But if it's only for your own gain, like if you're going after someone just because they have really good hips or just because they have a really good voice and
Or
you
their
don't
skin tone.
a lighter skin tone or something like that, like I think that's where you kind of need to like back up and realize like this isn't, you know, a relationship isn't meant to benefit just one sole purpose.
Right.
Because then it's going to become toxic and just stressful, you know, relationship and stuff like that. And yeah, I think that's where, you know, there's a like fine line between like, oh, this is my preference and this is my type versus like, I have to have this girl. or
Right.
I have to have this particular.
I only date.
I only date men who are like 6'3". You know, it's like, all right, like that's a you know specific thing, but okay, like I guess all 6 under are just like not good. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Em?
Yeah, so this is something, definitely had experience. Being hypersexualized as a Puerto Rican, as half Puerto Rican and half Guyanese, it was definitely a little different where I was growing up in Miami, just because there was still that hypersexualization, and particularly from like the white people in Miami, but half of everyone I knew was mixed, so it was a little different, and so I saw it falling along more of like colorism lines, if than anything else,
Yeah.
when it was like in community. And then when I went to college, that's when I really started noticing it, because I went to a college in the Midwest where the only conception of race, or the only public conception of race, was the white-black binary, and so I was exotic to people. I was told all the time I had an accent, which I don't think I do. And there was one point, no, yeah, I have an American accent. I mean, Miami can slip out a little, but not often. At a college party, actually, the most exact example was this guy. We were all kind of hanging out outside. He was by a staircase, and he just kind of looked at me and was like, "You don't seem white."
It's like, how do I put this clearly?
Right. And I was like, yeah, you know, I'm not. You know, I'm half white Guyanese, and I'm half mixed Puerto Rican. And he was like, yeah, I love Puerto Ricans. And I was like, me too. And then just kind of walked away. And then what was really disappointing for me was that this was a man of color. And this was a man of color that was really organized, like really into organizing on campus and racial justice. And it just like, I was like, I see right through you, like, and I see the way that you go through like women. And I know that and my gender identity was uncertain in college. And so I was perceived as a woman, and I think at that time I did identify as a woman. And so I felt very much that he used women of color.
Yeah.
And then I also noticed a lot of patterns when it comes to just how people dated in college as well. You know, the lighter you are, the more likely someone was to actually date you and not just hook up with you in private. And that happened with a lot of mixed people I knew. And so I knew a lot of specifically white cis straight men who had a lot of sexual color, never dated them.
Wow.
Never dated them. All their partners were white. So those are kind of,
Yeah, it kind of like sets the standard.
The experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was, there was something that you were saying as well, the preference. I hate that term as well, because, I mean, how do you, no, it's not you. It's more that, it's this idea that there's one way to look a certain race, or a certain ethnicity, or a certain amalgamation of all of your identities. And it's so frustrating. And then also that rebellion comment too, I feel like is definitely colluding with that history where like black men are seen as the greatest threat to white femininity. Which is angering. But yeah, preference is ridiculous, and there's always something at the root of it. There's something under that.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think, because I know that for just like hearing rhetoric, and like not only in like my family, but in a lot of families of color, is like, especially if you're darker skin tone, like go for someone that's lighter skin tone.
Yes.
And so that I feel like that's where a lot of that might come from, that preference, and it's because you've been like talked to like all the time since you were younger, like go for someone lighter so that they'll be more accepted into society or whatever it might be. Just like people coming into the United States and stuff. And so I know that that's something that like I've experienced, like I like personally like marry someone that's lighter, and then also just having people who I've known in the past who have like said like, oh, like I'm supposed to go with someone that's like your skin color, because I am light skinned for for my black side, but I'm like in the middle / I'm dark skinned for my Mexican side of the family because they're all very light skinned. But like when people think of like the stereotypical Mexican person being like darker skin tone, I'm like right in the middle, like about to hit there. So it's like this weird, like to some people I'm going darker on the scale, and for some people I'm
lighter.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that I feel like stems from that colorism aspect as well.
100%. Definitely, like that's similar to my family. My mom, who I love so much, you know, who
We love your mom. We've never met her, and we love her.
I love her to death. But anytime I would bring a girl over, you know, we would have the typical like, oh my gosh, who is it? You know, like she would like hype me up, and I would see the pattern of like, you know, skin tone of the darker my friend was, the more like disinterested my mom would be. Be like, oh, like hello, how you doing? And I'm like, You didn't do this for last week when I brought my other friend over.
Last week.
All right. But like that was like one conversation that I had with my mom, and I was like, Mom, like, was there any reason why you wanted, this particular girl, or like you were really excited that I brought a blonde, blue-eyed girl, and she's like, well, yeah, like I wanted you to, have, children with her, and da da da. And I was like, well, Mom, I was in middle school, entering high school, so like that wasn't happening. But she was like, well, I know that if this does come, where you have children, I want you to think about like your children's future, and da da da. I was like, well, let's not be based on my partner's like life. Like it's not gonna be her fault. Like that my children have the life they have. They're gonna have the life they have. And she's like, oh, I understand. I'm like, okay, Mom, we'll pick this up. And we have been picking this up, like this conversation over and over, where I'm like, Mom, I'm gonna have a partner, and they're just gonna be who they are, and I'm just gonna love them unconditionally, and I want you to know that you are the sole factor for me loving people unconditionally. She's like, that's just me. like, I got you that one. But definitely like just being able to love that person unconditionally without kind of having the outer realm of like social media and like your friend groups and everyone else telling you like, oh, you have to like this person. Yeah. That's where it's kind of the biggest hurdle to break through.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, from just like your experience as well, like what we have like the last 5 minutes here, like just kind of talking about like what that can do to also either like what we can do to heal from that, and then also like I guess we should start with like the damage it can cause, and then like how we can heal from it.
Absolutely. So there's, as you can imagine, quite a bit of damage that can be caused. There's mental health effects for the people who are being hypersexualized, and then when we talk about the way that people are hypersexualized, it's often used as a justification of violence and as an entitlement to someone's sexuality, right? That it seems that it's there for you. And so I think that's something that, regardless of whether you're within the mainstream society, like what cis white straight man, or if you hold positional power in your community and you're monoracial, like there's chances are you're contributing to that, and it affects our families. Like I know that for me, we have quite a variety of skin tones in my families, and most Puerto Rican families, it's just it's like roll the dice. You don't know what's going to happen, no matter what your parents look like often. And so you see the ways that everyone fawns over the blonde hair, blue-eyed baby, the way that everyone talks about it, and whether or not you intend it to be seen that way. Like what everyone is hearing is, so you think I'm ugly. You think that whatever I am isn't good enough, and I need to aspire towards this. And that's when we get into almost this Kardashian phenomenon. Honestly, I think that the hypersexualization of mixed peoples has led to the classic Instagram model look, which is, it's emulating black women, but what it ends up looking like is also, one, brown face and black face is what it ends up looking like, and it's like they're trying to be mixed. They're trying to be closer to black, but of course they don't want to be black.
Right, of course.
And then if you call someone white on Instagram who looks this way, it's an insult rather than a description of who they are. Yes. And then you don't really get to go to the root of the different ways that people's body parts are sexualized, to the point where like people are, I hated my eyebrows growing up.
Now they're all the rage.
Right, yeah, exactly. And so the emotional roller coaster that it can take when we fetishize different features too. So sometimes it's just such a big, complicated issue, and it absolutely justifies the ways that we feel entitled to people's bodies, and colluding, like that history of like white women colluding with the classic story of Emmett Till and colluding with whiteness to position black men who are monoracial and biracial as a threat to white femininity. Right. So there's systemic issues, there's interpersonal issues. I mean, this could be a whole class, not just a 30 minute. Yeah. That would be cool.
See you, Denver. We have a new faculty who would like to come here on. Their name is M. Alves.
There's a student demand right here.
But yeah, and then like, what can we do like as a community to help each other heal as well? Even your own personal experience.
Can I ask what you mean by that? Like, for like mixed community or like monoracial people as well, like an overall CU community?
I think
yes and.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I would say calling it out gently when you see it with your family. I know that that's the biggest, scariest thing, and I really do recommend that people consider their safety. Because if you're there for Thanksgiving break or winter break or something, and you get kicked out,
That's a big thing.
that's a big thing, yeah, and that's the only place you have to stay. But like in front of my mother, when she was talking about, oh, the blue hair, blonde eyes, and my partner has those features, and I felt very strongly about my child never hearing that when I have a child with my partner. And so I was like, I know that you don't really mean it this way, Mommy, but like, if, when I hear this, the thing that I'm hearing, and I try to make it really personal to me, to her, like, direct kin.
True.
And it was like, I hear that you think my features aren't good. And when you tell me all the time, like, my mom's always like, oh, your nose is bigger than mine, and it's because I do this every morning. I hear that you find my features ugly and you find our people ugly. And that upsets me.
Yeah.
And my mom heard that, but she was also like, I don't mean it like that. But that's the starting place.
Yes.
Right?
Start somewhere.
Right.
Like, definitely, especially with families, it's like a very intricate glass Rubik's Cube that you kind of have to move slowly so that you don't break any pieces.
And especially with collectivist cultures, like things like where family is everything,
Exactly.
like your foundation.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's actually.
But definitely starting is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Definitely ease into it.
Yeah.
I love you, Mommy.
Yeah.
I definitely love my mom, but definitely like those first few conversations, she was like, "What do you mean? Like, I don't do that." And I'm like, "You too, Mom."
Yeah.
And when I hear it, this is how I feel. And so definitely getting to the, like you said, like the root of the kin, and like being like, if your own child's telling you this, there. Like, as a parent, I would feel that you accept your, child's, input and opinion and be like, oh man, I really gotta step it up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish we could keep talking.
This is a really good topic.
I know, like the time went like this, like really fast.
Yeah.
Thank you, Em, for
Thank
being
you.
here. Em is actually coming back later on this season when we talk about like Netflix and like shows like You and 13 Reasons Why and things like that, because I'm almost done with the first season of You, and it makes me want to punch someone. But anyway, yes, thank you all for tuning in to another episode. Next week, we will be celebrating International Women's Day and National Women's History Month, and Ray has a birthday this coming this weekend. Yes, on Sunday.
International
Yes,
Women's Day.
it's Sunday, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So my birthday is on International Women's Day. So a big shout out to my mother and all my mothers who raised me. But yes, the main topic of the podcast next Wednesday will be on International Women's Day, and basically all the women who are impactful in our lives, and just what the future will hold for women progressing, which will happen.
Yes, absolutely.
Although you won't be here next week. But
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Oh, darn.
Yeah, I have an interview, so hopefully I get a job.
Make a move.
Well, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of
What Are You?